Welcome to Worth Your Time with your hosts from the nationally syndicated Bob and Tom Show, Kristi Lee, and the president and CEO of the Indianapolis Zoo, Dr. Rob Shumaker. Our mission to inform, entertain, and educate with guests from all aspects of life. We guarantee there isn't another podcast that features two hosts with such different backgrounds and discussions with remarkable people doing exceptional things. So let's get started. Here are your hosts, Kristi Lee and Dr. Rob Shumaker.
All right. We are speaking with a good friend of mine, Marilene Isaacs. And Marilene and I have known each other for quite a few years. Marilene is, how do you describe yourself, Marilene? Are you a spiritual healer?
I'm a healer,
psychic, intuitive
therapist, healer of people, animals, and places.
Okay.
I can remember my birth and where I was before, so my work is very different than a lot of people's. I don't read tarot. I don't do this. It's a very integrated. Some people are born, they can paint paintings or they can play the piano. I was born, I can hear, feel, see. I have very strong extrasensory perception. And it was just, so it's normal for me. Nothing's paranormal to me.
Do you see auras?
Oh, always.
Colors? What colors do you see around
always,
Dr. Rob
always,
right now?
Oh, here we go. Now, by the way, this is the first ever anyone has, what do I say, given me a reading or
right.
How do I call it?
Yeah, I feel like I tell people stories. I feel like it's very conversational. When I connect with people, it's just natural. So it's not like, oh my God, this is It's like as a child, I got in trouble all the time because I go to people's houses and talk to their parents about things that there would be no way I would know about.
Oh, wow.
And then when they ask me back, it would be like, why don't you know this stuff? Right? No, you have a lot of heart energy, beautiful pink energy, beautiful, like a blue-green, almost like a Tiffany color and like a little lighter than the shirt you have on. But you're
Which is blue.
And auras change, too, with people's mood. See, we're in this vibration right now where we're so present that our moods can change, or our energy is changing so fast. And both of you you're not stuck. You're in this movement right now. So people are being forced to heal and change, and it's hard for people. But you've got a lot of good movement.
All right, I'll take that.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Do you believe in auras? Do you, Dr. Rob?
I thought hard about this, how I would answer that question, and any of what some people call paranormal. And I don't know.
Electromagnetic field, that's all it is.
Here's what I would say.
It's a fancy word for it, but they can read it. Haven't you seen where you can see the energy? It's frequency. It's just energy field. It images, so you can, right.
So I think the way I would characterize it, I would honestly say this is all completely new to me.
Okay.
I've never really been exposed to it, but I am very open to learning and understanding.
Yeah.
I'm a trained scientist, but Kristi's talked to me about this before,
Yep.
but
Yep.
I know exactly what she's thinking. So I absolutely have had experiences seeing ghosts.
Of course you have.
And I believe in that very clearly and very firmly. So
explain to us about your ghost experience.
Me? You want to jump into this already?
Absolutely. That's why we're here. We're not really here to talk about your aura. We're here to talk about ghosts.
Yeah.
So we kind of thought this would be appropriate for a release in
October. So we're like Halloween month. It's
perfect. The time the veil's the thinnest, and
the what?
The veil is the thinnest between heaven and earth.
Okay.
That's where it comes from. Halloween and All Saints Day. It comes from ancient Egyptian rituals of the dead. That death is a process, birth is a process.
Yeah.
So is death. It's like but the October 31st is a time that they say is the closest. It's when heaven and earth. There's not that filter between is gone. Wow. But that's where all the ghost stuff comes from. People. But it's really the easiest time for people to perceive. Yeah, and pick up things or see into the other side, so to speak. Yeah.
So I can tell you this, and I would of course love to hear your reaction and your thoughts.
Sure.
So, this was when I lived in Des Moines, Iowa. I lived there for 7 years before moving to Indiana, and my wife and I moved there, and we had our very young son. He was I think 18 months old or something when we moved there, and when we went there, we found a beautiful old house, very old house that we loved. Had a wonderful time living there. And the way it was laid out, there was a staircase right at the front door as you walked in, and that took you up to the second floor, of course. And we had a routine at night that every night I would put my son to bed and read him a story and spend some time with him. And my wife stayed downstairs. And at the landing of those stairs was a little, very short little hallway and a restroom and a little storage area and so on. Very nice with almost no lighting, and a window as you went up the stairs to the backyard. So my son was just becoming verbal when we moved there, and he said the simple things, mama, dad, bye-bye, hello, that kind of thing. So every night I would pick him up and carry him up to bed, and I'd say goodnight to mom, night-night, mommy. Say goodnight to the dog, night-night, Kelsey. And as we were going up the stairs, I would be looking forward, and every night on the same step, he would turn around and look over my shoulder at the step behind me and look at the step behind me and lean over and go, night-night. Mm-hmm. And then we'd go to bed. And I didn't see anything. And I was always the first person up every morning in the house. And that was the staircase I would use to come downstairs. We had two staircases. Right. I would use that one to come down. And there was a morning where it was very well lit, a nice bright morning. I was awake. No one else was awake. And I came down the steps. And as I turned the corner on the steps facing the front door, a little boy just walked from the living room right in front of the staircase and then directly into the dining room. And that was that. Never looked at me and just passed by.
No.
And it just felt completely comfortable. Of course. And there's two more pieces to this. Then there was...
Me too. This is great.
Well, there was another time by myself again, but in the middle of the day, I was going up the steps. And as I went up the steps, I passed by the window into the backyard, and I panicked because, of course, my son was still only, very young, but walking, of course. And I said, how did he get in the backyard? Yeah. And I saw him walk, the little boy, walking down the pathway in our backyard. Yeah. And I thought, oh, no. And then I turned around and I saw my son in the living room. And it was the same little boy again. No, wait, but wait, there's one more.
What?
So,
this is so awesome.
So here's the other thing. So tying some of these things together, I've spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia, particularly in Indonesia. And it's very normal for Indonesian people to talk about ghosts and think about ghosts. So I have a wonderful, wonderful friend and colleague who's Indonesian. And she was at my house at one point and loved my son. And I was in the kitchen, and she went to use the powder room and came into the kitchen and was very, how can I say, stricken, and said, I need to talk to you. Startled. And I said, okay. So she pulled me out of the room, and she took me to the bottom of the stairs. Of course, I had never said anything to her about this. And she said, I am worried about your son. And I said, why? And she said, this entire area is full of ghosts.
Oh.
No, I get it.
I had never said a word to her. And she said, there are ghosts everywhere here. And I said, how do you know? And she said, I know. And of course, her belief is that if you leave a light on, that's a way to keep the area safe and calm for people. And she said, I want you to promise me you will keep a light on in this area always. I want to keep this safe for your son. So I said, okay.
Was that in the hallway and the
right next
stairway?
To the stairs, right at the bottom
right
of the
at the
stairs.
bottom of the landing?
Right at the bottom of the stairway.
Yeah. Wow.
So I did, and that's the last time I ever saw that little boy.
Little boy?
I can tell you what happened.
Let's hear it.
Children and children till they're about 7, and animals see 4th and 5th and 6th dimensionally. So you'll see your cats or dogs or they'll be looking. They're seeing. They see. They know there's no separation. They live very present. They're not caught in the minutia, right? They see. Babies are the same thing. You'll see babies looking. You'll see little kids, imaginary friends, or blah blah blah. When you first started telling the story, what the little boy was showing you, somebody died. There was probably a bad accident that happened involving the stairs. And the little boy himself could have passed away there. So a lot of times what you see, she was very right. It was telling you a practical thing. Keep the light on. And you didn't see the little boy again because the little boy was saying something happened here. And he might have been trapped there in the sense. There's different kinds of things. There's different types of spirits or souls that get trapped. That was not that. That was definitely an area where I would say at least 3 people, maybe 2 had a very bad accident, or someone in the past may have passed away in that area. And it's so interesting that it came in the 3 different ways. It's kind of cool because it's like your son waving to the right.
Yeah.
They very much see. They totally see. Well, it's funny about Iowa. My mother's from Northwest Iowa, from Sioux County, and I went to 2 colleges in Iowa.
Wow.
Central College in Pella, Iowa.
Sure.
Which is very near Des Moines.
Of course.
And I was one of the last graduating classes of Parsons College, which is now the Maharishi University.
Oh,
Fairfield,
of course.
Iowa, the infamous,
Yeah.
Serendipity.
Isn't that funny? Iowa is a wonderful, interesting. It has the most private colleges of all anywhere.
Oh, it was a wonderful place to live and wonderful opportunities.
My Dutch relatives.
I taught at Drake University for a long
Drake,
time.
We used to play them. Yeah.
Wonderful state.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to rein you in here a minute
No,
about the
No more
ghost
about
thing.
Iowa? You have
Well,
nothing about Iowa?
I know nothing
But
about
we had
Iowa.
to talk about that because
I love Iowa.
Synchronicity.
I know we were talking about synchronicity at
Synchronicities.
dinner.
That's why
but
I'm
that's a
bringing it.
whole different.
Yeah.
I want to.
Okay, let's
that'll
go.
be for
Let's
later.
go.
Yeah, they had dinner
For
without
the
me,
ghost
by the
thing.
way.
That's
Yeah, you
so
did not have
fascinating.
dinner with us, and you missed
That's-
out on a fabulous meal, by the way.
Next time.
Next time. So the ghost thing and children is very interesting to me because when my daughter, my youngest, was a baby, like I'm rocking her in the rocking chair to go to bed at night. And I am an older mom. I will admit that. I had my children very late in life. Sophie came to me when I was 42 years old. Marilene's been through this with me, that whole struggle. And she was a miracle. And I was she couldn't have been. She was a baby, probably about the same age as Will, like 18 months or so. And we were rocking, and she looked up at me at 18 months. And she wasn't. She was little, and she goes, "I am just so glad, Mom, that I'm finally here. I have been looking down from heaven and wanting to be here for so long." I get goosebumps just saying that because she said that to me as a baby, like tiny child.
Yes.
And I will never forget that.
Wow.
And
that's when you
and
know.
she knows how hard I tried to have her and what I went through to get her, and I had given up all hope. I had gone to this, library. I was buying all these books on how to raise an only child and everything. And here's Sophie. A total miracle. And when she said that to me, it opened up so many eyes. Yes. And my children, both of my girls, are huge believers in spirits and ghosts and what's going on in the paranormal. They've gone to haunted sanitariums and haunted houses, and they are both so in tune that I wonder if it had to have started there, right? When
her soul, she came in very consciously. It's like I can remember my birth and where I was before. So when I was a very small child, same thing. I would tell my parents all kinds of things that there's no way I could read.
So wait, before, when you say before, you mean before your birth?
You remember
I remember where I was.
So what do you remember before your birth?
I remember being tricked to get back down here. This is going to be really good. You need to go back down. And I remember thinking, I don't know about this. And there's these bright lights, and I thought my mother was dead. In 1948, they used to give your mother ether.
Of course.
I thought it was horrifying. But then I started to very much remember, and then as a small child, my last life, I was in the French underground, and I helped rescue children away from the Holocaust. And I know how I died. And that came about when I was pregnant when I had my son. I had vivid memories of how he died. And what happens is that people don't understand reincarnation is very real, and it's a very real. It's natural. It's not like you're looking for it. It's just like she was in heaven looking. She found you. It's very natural. So I've had so many stories of people. People brought up in very conservative churches like I was, where they bring children. They go, I know I shouldn't believe this or be coming to see you, but my child, I know this is my grandmother, my grandfather come back because they know all these things and they're telling me these things, and they point to the picture and say, that was me, or, I've seen it over and over again.
So you, when you say reincarnation, do you use the term reincarnation the way we hear about it in some Eastern religions?
Similar, but I think it's different than people think. I think because I believe very much in a present time, a concept instead of linear. Linear is the karmic thing. We just keep repeating.
I see.
And it's kind of an antiquated system. We're in this time now where we're supposed to just be present and you can be healed in that moment. But yes, I think that the soul is ancient, and it runs through many different bodies. And that's why some people, the way they're conceived, the way they're gestated, the way they're born, why are some children afraid of water, others are not? Or why do you have weaknesses or strengths or abilities? It's not just genetics. It's your soul's experiences.
So when you talk about past lives, and I say this very respectfully, this is something I want to understand.
Sure.
Because I do hear people joke about this. When people talk about past lives, it seems very rare or absent to hear someone talk about a past life that was just ordinary. Right.
No, it's true.
You were always a Tsarina or,
it's so funny because, you're right. But I think sometimes what people remember are maybe the more intense lives. Because I remember the very intense life, of course. And when I was a little child, I didn't like children, but I didn't know why I didn't like children. And I think it's because of how when I was in the French underground, and I could never learn French, and I would hear German, I would just cringe. I couldn't. And I remember back in the old days, I used to educate you and show you videos of the Holocaust. Big in junior high. Sure. I threw up. I absolutely I knew. And so my son and I, we were running through the forest, and we'd been betrayed, and we got shot together. And he nursed till he was 4 years old. And it was about the age I saw when he always wanted to be, we passed that way together. So what happens? No, and I remember some just menial lives I had. But yeah, you're right. But I think sometimes it's because people just remember the more... if it was impactful.
So you do remember meaningless?
Yeah, menial.
Menial.
I think it's like average pedestrian.
Right, average pedestrian.
Yeah,
sure.
Like
of course. You don't just all of a sudden do certain things,
right?
But yeah. No, and I really think, but that's to your point. Yeah, I know people always want to, I was so-and-so and so-and-so. And I think sometimes people in history were maybe made up of a group soul. And I think animals very much, I've had very interesting things with, I love animals. I do healing with animals too, and communication. And I've had amazing stories with some of my animals and how they've come back and come back and come back. I never have to look for them, and they just reappear. And
now we're talking your language, Dr. Rob.
So it always has the same species?
No. You can jump around. That's why some
humans too.
Haven't you seen horses act like cats or dogs? I've seen animals that don't act like they're. They're very evolved, and they have more. They're not your normal kind of run of the mill, animal.
Mm-hmm.
But is
that's transmigration?
Sure.
And what I think about transmigration, I think it's an ancient concept. Well, biblically, the animals were here first. The beginning was the Word, then the light, then the animals, then the. We know it didn't happen in 7 days. They have a group soul, and I think they are all about unconditional love. I believe, truthfully. 40 years ago, I started this workshop and different things, and it's called Return to the Garden, Paradise Found, How to Be in Heaven Without Dying to Get There. I remember as a small child, I would tell people, heaven's here. It didn't leave us, we left it. And when I was very young, I could never eat animals and meat. I just wouldn't eat it. And I remember a time when nothing had to die to live. And there wasn't this thing. And so I really believe it's about frequency. So I think there was a time when there was like a Garden of Eden, when there was like wholeness, wellness, and that we didn't leave it. It's still here. That fear. We fell through fear into this illusion of separation. Because what do we have? Fear or unconditional love. If you choose unconditional love, which is perfect love, casts out all fear. So when you're in that state of where your heart's wide open, and you don't have a lot of wounded areas anymore, you don't take things personally. It's when you take things personally, you still have things you need to heal. And then you can go into the unconditional love because it's real. You feel safe.
I take everything personally.
Well, you should feel it.
I do.
But,
You know that.
You have to go to the point of origin. And that's what I do with people. So we find the point. Where did this originate? Let me get rid of that.
It's way too much work.
I have one more ghost question.
No, I want to talk about ghosts.
All right, I have
about
another ghost question about
Okay.
it. So, do you believe when, for example, that when I firmly believe I saw that same ghost twice.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
So, is there something about me or other people that have had those experiences
Yeah.
where other people don't?
The pineal and pituitary are
yeah.
the functioning of what we call the third eye.
Yeah?
So some people's are wide open. Like when people do drugs, it falsely opens. Like when you hear about people that do LSD or ketamine or all the different things, it falsely, but they're seeing things, right?
Sure.
So it's the functioning of the pineal and pituitary gland. They know that scientifically about the third eye. So some people are empathic. Some people they hear things. Some people just sense them. Some people see. Yes. So some people don't see.
Or not open to.
They're not open
so
to, or they
speak.
don't have the development sometimes, or it will come in dreams. Some people have very powerful dreams where they're shown things that other people don't see. But no, you were supposed to see that, and it was perfect that your friend gave you that advice.
Have you had
And the
other
boy
ghost
was-
experiences? Or was it just that one home?
I've not ever had another ghost experience that I'm aware of.
Okay.
You probably, but that was profound because it was about your son.
It was.
Well, and you saw it.
And you saw
There's
it.
not like a,
And you
like
have
you walk into a
verification.
room and then all of a sudden it gets cold.
Right,
No,
right,
no. And it wasn't. It was a little boy. It wasn't
Yeah.
a misty.
Did he have dark
transparent-
hair?
Sure.
Yes.
I saw him this is how my stuff works.
Yes.
So when you're telling the story, I could visualize the house. I
Yes.
could visualize the little boy, and he had dark hair.
Yeah. This little boy just walking normally.
Yeah.
In older clothes.
He was
Oh,
protecting.
Did you look into that
Wait.
house or anything? Did you
Listen,
try to find out?
the
Oh, go
history
ahead.
of the
I'm sorry,
house.
what'd you see?
I just felt chills.
What'd you just see? Sorry.
well, I've had one other experience that was very odd that I've never, I've actually never talked about. And this is when I lived in D.C.
I lived there too.
And odd for what you were explaining. So I've rehearsed this so many times in my mind, it'll sound like I'm, reading it. But I went to see Schindler's List when it came out.
Oh, yeah.
I went by myself.
Powerful.
Yeah, I went by myself. And anybody from D.C. will remember there are a lot of movie theaters here. This one was on the second floor of a building, and it was very difficult to get in and out. There are steps on either side going up, and it was packed, absolutely packed. And I have always enjoyed going to movies by myself. I never hesitate to do
Me
that.
too.
So I wanted to see it, and it was completely sold out. So there was one seat that I found, and I sat down, and I thought it was very unusual because the man sitting next to me was old, and he had an overcoat and a fedora, and the overcoat was folded on his lap, and the fedora was sitting on top of the overcoat. This was not a usual thing to see.
No.
And he was dressed, very nicely. And he sat silently and didn't move through the entire movie. And, of course, anyone that saw that movie in the theater knows that at the end of the movie it was silent and the lights would come on and people were moved and would sit for a long time and collect themselves and then get ready to go. Well, everyone did that. We stood up, and it was completely packed with people, and you had to go up the narrow aisle in single file. So I stood up, and he stood up, put on his coat, put on his hat, and we were waiting to go up the aisle, and he, out of the blue, in a German accent, looked at me and said, "I was in Dachau."
Oh my God.
Well, he was behind me. He was the seat to my left. So he was behind me. I was going up the aisle. And remember, it was completely packed with people. And we were going up the aisle, and I thought, oh my God, this poor man. And he's by himself. I should say, would you like to go have coffee, or would you like to sit, or something?
Right.
And I turned around, and he was not there.
Right. I love that you shared that story. Thanks for sharing that for the first time. It's a beautiful story, because people don't understand. It's not always like this scary stuff. It's healing things. So,
and I looked for him. I looked in the crowd.
And it's not like he was one of a million people.
No.
And it was healing for him to see people. What attracts spirits are the emotions of people.
Yeah.
So there's all this telling the truth, right? And the power of people being moved, he could use that energy to heal something for himself.
So here's the thing, that
and the fact that you picked up on it is amazing, because you're very evolved. You have a very evolved energy, so you networked. What's interesting to me about that story, I believe that there were 2 other people you just didn't know that saw him. I think he affected other people. He was there. It was a very interesting healing experience for people, because I think there were 2 other people.
I thought about that for so many years,
That's powerful.
But I will tell you what haunts me about it. I've never been able to resolve the question, because my immediate thought was, oh, he was a prisoner. But maybe he wasn't.
Maybe he wasn't.
He might have been.
He might have been the other side of
The
that.
first thought
I don't know.
The first thought I thought was that he may have been a guard or higher.
Who knows, right?
But not an evil person, but like
But
trying to make peace. I didn't feel
With
persecution.
the
I felt
horror
more
there.
like he had to see. Yeah, I think you're right.
I still cannot.
That's powerful.
That was
that was powerful.
That's palatable. That
you
is like the most
saved
beautiful
that story till just now.
Thank
I guess.
you for sharing, because it's a fabulous
I never
story
thought
of
about it.
healing. And this is what people don't understand. It's about this. That's a beautiful story.
Well, it's 100% true.
Oh, I totally
believe you.
I can
100% true.
feel it's palatable. No, that's wonderful. And I thought the same thing to myself. I think he was not a cruel person, but he was German, and he was
Caught up in that
caught
whole
up,
thing.
and he was trying to heal and be forgiven or understand it.
Do a lot of spirits come back for that reason to find? And do they? Let's for example, this gentleman in the fedora, he disappeared.
Right.
Does that mean that he found what he was looking for and he was
probably
finally
had a
put to rest?
profound experience. Sure, he had a healing experience. I've been in 7 paranormal movies. I was in Central State. Was the first one. I went to those 4 miles of tunnels under there. Oh my God! And I go to heal places, not evoke. And I was very unpopular with these people. Because I go not to evoke, or people go, all those fake ghost machines. They're not fake, but I could just pick up on things and see things. And I would go and ask them to I knew they were trapped or whatever, to heal the place. And I actually got kicked out of a couple places because they want to keep their ghosts, But no.
Now, what does it mean to heal a place?
Because places hold energy. The whole Earth has different magnetic and electrical vortexes, right? We know. I mean, it's just true. Why do cities pop up or things pop up in certain places, right? And so anything that's happened on the Earth is recorded there in a frequency. It's all frequencies, right? So you can heal. I go into houses, for example, or into different places, and there's a way to get all that transmuted so it's not stuck there. It's all about things that get stuck. It's like the physical body. Everything first starts in this mental, emotional, spiritual, then becomes physical. And that's what dis-ease is, right? So there's ways to heal and clear. And this is the other thing. It's the illusion of separation. When you start to think about it this way, there really is no death. There's no death. You just change form. We change form. So when you start to understand it in that way, it's not as scary. It's not like I'm awake, I'm asleep, I'm dead, I'm alive. That's a left brain, right brain. And we have that reptilian brain stem that's left over that wants to fight or flee, right? Mm-hmm. But we have this higher consciousness that when you're in a meditative state, and you can play golf and be time you become one with what you're doing, the eye's single.
I hear people use the term, I'm in the flow,
right.
or flow,
it's like
flow state.
Right, we're in the flow, you're present. You're not in this reactive,
and
fearful
time
state.
doesn't really exist.
No. And that's the time we're in right now. We're out, that's what COVID was about, was to get people ready for waking up and realizing you're not really trapped in this matrix you think you're in. You got to, like the movie Groundhog Day is a wonderful movie because it didn't matter what he did, he came back to the same lesson, like variation on the theme, right? And we're not supposed to be learning that way anymore.
How are we supposed to be learning that?
We're supposed to be healing and not living in fear. And we're supposed to be in a joyful state, not a fearful state. But you can control people through fear. And that's how the lower forces, there are dark forces, and that's how they control through fear. And when we live in the world we live in today, create your own world. You are the Lord of your own creation, and what you see in the outer world is just a mirror reflecting back to you what's going on inside of yourself. So when you heal your fears and you work on yourself and you know that you have the power to, it's not about being overpowered by this person or that thing or this horrible thing in the world. No, create your heaven on earth. That's why we're here. And enough people do that. I think there are more and more people kind of really getting it, and more than it might look like.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it is. You don't see that, but that's really is what's happening. That's the truth.
So for somebody, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're going to take a break real quick because we've been...
Don't.
I'm sorry, we have to. We'll be back with more of our conversation, and we're going to talk in our next half hour about a little bit more about some of the more haunted places that you've been, and I'm also very interested in the animal connection between the two of you, because I would really like to know. There's something here, and I haven't figured it out yet, but I think we're going to delve into that in our next half hour.
What did you tell me? Witch talk?
Witch talk. We were talking about
Is
witch
that a real
talk
thing?
too. Yeah, horrible. Look at her. Yeah, we're going to talk about witch talk as well. So stay with us. We'll be back.
You've been listening to Worth Your Time with Dr. Rob Shumaker and Kristi Lee. If you like what you hear, please give a review wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to tell your friends. Word of mouth is the best compliment. Thanks to our producers, Chris Spangle of Leaders and Legends, LLC. You can reach him at leadersandlegends.net. Also, thanks to Sophie Ritz. I'm Christopher Geisen. Thanks for joining us.